Welcome to CYF Spotlight, presented by the Commission on Children, Youth, and Families. The Commission is a joint effort between the City of Farmington Hills and the City of Farmington. Its purpose is to foster a healthier community by focusing on our most precious resources, our children and our families. The Commission is made up of dedicated volunteers and community activists from all walks of life. Working together with other groups and agencies in the community, the Commission creates programs with one goal: to encourage a supportive environment where children, youth, and families are happy, healthy, educated, and safe, and have the opportunity to reach their full potential. The Commission is hosting this show to bring our focus and activities to the community. We welcome your input and support. You can learn more about our Commission at our website, www.cyf.us.
Good afternoon. My name is Ed Cherkensky. I'm Secretary of the Commission on Children, Youth, and Families here in Farmington Hills. And I have the pleasure of introducing two gentlemen today that are going to be part of our show on scams and fraud. I have to my left Frank Demers, who is the current Director of Public Safety in the City of Farmington. And we have to my right Chuck Nebus, who is the Police Chief in Farmington Hills. Gentlemen, we've discussed this a little bit today, and we've discussed various topics, and I'd like to begin with Chuck, and I would like to ask him about some of the scams that have been perpetrated on taxpayers. It's tax season. There are all kinds of scams and frauds going on. Can you comment on that topic?
Yes, we do get a lot of them all across the country, and Farmington Hills have been no exception to the IRS scams. Just within days here, a woman in Waterford lost $14,000 on one of these scams, and we've had residents lose money as well. And usually the scam will work that somebody will contact them and tell them they're from the IRS and tell them they're going to go to jail. The IRS doesn't send you emails and doesn't call you up and tell you you're going to go to jail. That's not how it works. So anytime people get a call from someone, whether they say they're the police or the IRS, they really need to be sure. You hate to scare people, but the world in which we live in, you have to be careful. Part of what we're trying to do here today is to help educate people so they don't become a victim.
Anything to add?
Yeah, especially this time of year. I think communities throughout the country are also finding that there are more and more victims of tax fraud that are coming about every day. Several times a day this time of year, we see people coming in saying they just sat down with their accountant, their tax advisor. They spent 2 hours with them preparing all their documents, filling out forms, making sure that all their expenditures and receipts matched up from the year's tax reports. And the taxpayer sends that send button after 2 hours of work, and immediate response is a tax return has already been filed under this person's name. That person's identity has been stolen. A crook has used that identification to file their own tax return fraudulently and reap the benefits of that return, leaving the victim with hours of phone calls and headaches ahead of them. So it's certainly the time of year for people to be very aware of tax fraud, and that there are things that folks can do in the event specifically they find themselves in a situation where somebody has stolen their identity, usually social security number, to file a false tax form. And I brought some of that information with me today. The most important thing that people can do after they file a tax fraud is to realize that it is a federal offense, and they need to be in contact with the IRS. And it all starts with a fraud affidavit or identity theft affidavit. It's actually a form 14039. It can be obtained online at the IRS website. And what the victim is asked to do is to fill out this form completely and then mail a copy of the social security card and some form of identification, whether it be a driver's license or passport, to the IRS, and that will be assigned to an investigator, and at some point remediation will be done to make that person whole again. I also brought the address to the IRS in Andover, Maryland, for where these forms can be sent if mail is the preferred method, and that is P.O. Box 9039, Andover, Maryland, with the zip code of 01810. In addition to that, it certainly doesn't stop there. Typically, people who are victims of identity theft, tax fraud, open themselves up to a more likelihood of being a victim again in the future. So what we ask folks to do is to constantly monitor or regularly monitor their credit report. You can receive one free copy of your credit report a year from the main three providers, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, by way of www.annualcreditreport.com. That's the only free website where you can get your credit report. We also recommend that they file a report with the Federal Trade Commission. That is the Consumer Protection Federal Bureau, and they are sort of a warehouse for gathering data on scams and victims of identity theft, so they can identify those rings and individuals who are perpetrating these crimes. So there's a number of resources available to folks who fall victim to a fraud or tax fraud. Yes, it's a headache. It's not something that you want to see anybody have to go through, but it's important for the community to know that there are resources people can turn to in the event they find themselves in that circumstance.
How do these thieves obtain Social Security numbers?
A lot of ways. We're a very, now with the advent of the internet, public information is available at your fingertips, quite honestly. There are a number of websites and a number of different internet chat groups where you can purchase off the black market a person's identification, whether it be stolen and sold on the black market or generated through other means on the internet. There's a number of different ways that thieves utilize to get a person's information, but unfortunately public records is probably the number one most used way.
Is there any way to prevent this type of theft?
Being proactive, making sure that you're checking your credit reports. If you ever see an account, an unauthorized account open to your name, you need to flag your credit report. You need to flag your banking accounts to make sure that no one can come in and open an account in your name without approval process in place. So people have to realize that the resources that their banks and their credit unions offer them to ensure their safety and take full advantage of those services.
Yeah, and folks need to remember too to limit who you give your personal information to.
Yeah.
And shredders in the home is good for people when they have documents, anything with their social security number and those kind of things in particular. But people have to can never be too careful.
Has there been a problem in this area regarding garbage picking? People picking things out of the garbage that would benefit them and hurt the citizen?
I think that the businesses are more prone to that, where someone may go through a business dumpster looking for some kind of records or something that a company might be throwing out. And that's what we hear sometimes from people who assume and use identities. It's always curious to be able to ask them, how did you get someone's name? And sometimes there's nothing you can do. I have been the victim of identity theft at least 3 times. One time was out golfing with my 2 sons, and the manager of the golf course asked me if I was Mr. Nebus and asked me why I paid with a stolen credit card. I had no idea that we'd been away from home for a few days and had no idea that someone had assumed my identity and had gone on a credit card spree.
What happened with that?
Well, my sons had a good laugh, and fortunately I was able to convince them and to call the credit card company, and they shared with me that they had tried to get a hold of me and didn't have a number to contact me, and were trying to let me know that the cards had been compromised. Right?
Okay, that they were no longer valid.
Right.
Okay, and tell me about the other 2 times.
Well, other times, I've just found out that I've got something either from the bank or something telling me that we had to come in and get new bank accounts and new passwords and different things. And something that happened unusual that I was going to share with you today is I recently received this check in the mail for $2,945 made out to me. And it looks like an official check. It has watercolors. It says it's official and everything. And I contacted the bank it was drawn on, and all I had to do was say that I was calling to ask a question about a check that I received. And they told me, does it happen to be for $2,945? I said, yes, it does. They says, well, I've taken 100 of those calls today already. And what they were hoping that I would do is take this check, not knowing really, even though it wasn't from anybody I knew, and deposit it in my bank. And then I would have received a call, and they would have asked me, told me there was a mistake and it wasn't really meant for me, and could they have the money back? And they would try to reach a compromise where they could tell me I could keep a little bit of it and mail some back. And that's one of the common schemes that we hear reported as well.
And is this effective? You know, what I'm trying to ask
Well,
you, does it work?
You know,
Does
a
it work?
lot of people would fall for this because it comes priority mail from the United States Postal Service, and you know, it comes with an official looking check. And if someone was really hard up on money and weren't suspicious, if someone was having trouble paying their bills, they might just say, wow, I got a check from this man in Oregon for this amount of money, and they would, you know, gladly deposit it. So if a person is vulnerable, they'd be more easy to fall for it. But that makes it even more authentic looking because someone paid money to send this through the U.S. mail even. So it looks very official.
Yeah. I like to tell folks that you truly are at the mercy of people you do business with, whether it's shopping at Walmart or a grocery store or you know, doing business with a local mechanic. Anytime you're not paying with cash and you break out that credit card, you are truly at the mercy of the person you're doing business with, and you want to hope that that person is going to not use your information without your approval. You know, another layer of trouble that has been come about recently is the U-scan. You know, it used to be you go to the grocery store and you empty out your shopping cart onto a conveyor, and a clerk is there to scan all the barcodes. Well, now, as you're well aware, you can go to a number of stores and there is no cashier there. You're simply going through and doing the U-scan on your own. Well, when you're purchasing those things with stolen credit cards, that becomes a problem. We have had a number of cases where an individual's credit card information has been stolen, used to purchase a number of items at a big box store through a U-scan line, and typically what those thieves purchase are gift cards in the amount of $500,000, which they can sell on the black market or use anywhere else for their gains. So. Technology is both the root cause of, and it can also be the main protector when we're talking about identity theft.
Okay. What other scams are being perpetrated?
Well, there's a number of them, and and there's new ones dreamed up every day. Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things maybe to mention to viewers is because some of them involve safety issues. Most of the time, a telemarketing scam, or many of these, they're not crimes against person. But you have situations like when people try to sell something on Craigslist, for example. We've had many instances where we've had people meet somewhere to, you know, sell a phone or sell a piece of equipment, and it turns out to be a robbery, and they don't get paid, and they find themselves suddenly looking at the barrel of a gun. So you have to be very careful about, you know, who you meet and where, and recently, even here in Dearborn, a very high-profile case, a couple just met someone to sell a car, and they bought the car, and it was a stolen car that they just purchased, and they had all their funds. They both had medical conditions, and someone took advantage of that, and you know, so you can really be victimized. Mm-hmm. So you have to be careful when you're meeting strangers. You want to make sure that if you are meeting someone to sell something, you know, you never want to be alone. And never choose a secluded place. You know, you have to ask a few questions and be guided by some of your instincts, but don't be too trusting.
The couple in Georgia that was killed, they went down to look at a classic car, and they were found dead. Mm-hmm. You know, mm-hmm. And I believe that some cities are instituting like a neutral zone or a safe zone for these transactions.
Yeah, that has been an ingenious thought. Some law enforcement agencies have been promoting having people come to the police department at a certain day or a certain time to have safe exchanges.
Have you thought about doing that?
Well, we actually have had people do that before. We have child custody situations ordered all the time take place at the police department lobby to make sure that there's a peaceful transition sometime when they have, the kind of family dynamics that would perhaps, be tendency to have violence occur.
We would always offer the parking lot of the public safety department if somebody wants to choose that as a location to make an exchange, and that serves two purposes that are beneficial to the buyer and seller, and that is that not only have you shown to the person that you're going to make this purchase from that you're very concerned with your safety and watching out for yourself, and you're going to be in a parking lot that's probably monitored with surveillance cameras, but it also provides that area for someone to go and advise the person online to say, hey, listen, if we're going to make this deal go through, it's going to happen on my terms, and it's going to be at the police department. Typically, a legitimate seller or purchaser isn't going to put up too many roadblocks to say, no, that's not going to work out for me. Let's go to another location. That's a red flag right there that perhaps this transaction should not go through. So.
Is there any possible way of making yourself 100% safe from all these scams and frauds?
No. That's why we have our work cut out for us, and you have to do your best, and you also can't, fall. Another common scam we've had swept the country is this green dot scam, and it comes in various forms. And the ones we've seen recently, many Farmington Hills residents have been called and told they're being called by a Farmington Hills police officer, and they're told that they have a ticket or a warrant, or there's many different ways that this ruse goes. And they'll even give the person the telephone number, and the person will call back and they will answer it, the police. And how I know that is because I worked on it myself a couple of weeks ago. Someone was in our lobby and said they got a call from the police, and I called this individual, and he identified himself as a police officer, and I knew he didn't work for us at Farmington Hills. On the other end was a criminal, but you've got to be careful. We had another case with this green dot scam where a resident was called and was falling for it, and they actually went to Myers locally to get a green dot card to get themselves what they thought was out of trouble with the Farmington Hills police. And the actually clerk in the store said, I don't think the Farmington Hills police would be telling a citizen to come out and get a green dot card to make some kind of a payment. So in that particular case, the person came luckily to our lobby and was joined by a couple other people who were also there making green dot card reports. Sometimes they've traced actually some of these scams to different places in the country. There was even a prison down south where the convicts were running a green dot scam.
So it's real easy to do.
It's easy to do, and people have to remember again, no police agency is going to be calling someone and threatening them about going to jail and telling them that there's money that's owed. There's other processes for that. Persons will normally get something in the mail telling them that they're wanted by the police, in which they could certainly look up the number. And don't trust even when somebody gives you the number sometimes, because there's some software out there, some spoofing software, where they can actually use a legitimate phone number to make it look like it's coming from the police department. So you have to be careful of that, where someone could even look and say, geez, I know the number of my local police department, that's the number I just got called from. And that even could be an imposter, so you can never ever let your guard down.
We too in Farmington have had many people fall victim to the green dot scam. And what we're typically seeing is a phone call be placed by the imposter indicating that they're a representative from the IRS or the INS or even a utility service, and saying either you pay us $2,000 or either you purchase green dot cards loaded with $2,000, or we're going to issue warrants for your arrest. And a lot of times they work these people up so much, and they're telling them to work quickly and call us and give us the transaction number. And essentially what it amounts to is a wire transfer, completely untraceable. And many times people have fallen victim of this, sometimes in the upwards of several $1,000s of loss. Fortunately, some of the business owners in our area have interrupted some of these purchases, where someone will say, I need $2,000 worth of green cards, and the business owner will say, wait a minute, that's an awful lot of money, what's going on? And typically the victims are elderly or folks who are from a foreign country and not aware of IRS operations, and they think it's legitimate, so they race right to it, and it's financially devastating. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to make note of another scam we're seeing quite a bit, is the sweepstakes scam. And this is a situation where typically the elderly are the focus victims of this, where they will receive a phone call from somebody saying, you've just won $10,000 in a sweepstakes. In order for us to release the funds to you, you're going to have to pay a service fee, a nominal service fee of $500, $1,000. Well, the elderly person on the other end of the phone says, I'm still going to make out pretty good on this deal. I'll get your money to you, no problem. And they do the same thing, either wire the money through Western Union or the Green Dot scam, and the money's gone. And they come to us looking for help. So it's you mentioned before, can you avoid them as a whole? Absolutely not. The best you can do is what we preach is education. Educating the community about what to look out for. Usually when you place a call to a service or an organization and you're providing your personal information to them, when you initiate that call, you can kind of let your guard down a little bit. But when you are the recipient of that call and someone is asking you for your personal information, that is a very volatile situation where you need to be very guarded on the information that you bring.
Like somebody calling you from a credit card company and saying,
Absolutely.
could you please verify everything?
Absolutely.
Well, they have the information. You
Correct.
don't need to give them the information.
Correct. So that's one thing that I think it's important for the community to know.
And then what about these internet scams?
Certainly the internet scams are becoming more and more prevalent. With phishing, one of the bigger problems we're seeing is, with all the technology that's out there, I heard recently that identity theft is the new way to do a bank robbery. No longer is it necessary to break into a bank, guns a-blazing, ordering people to the ground, emptying the till. That can be accomplished without violence by way of the internet through a lot of these scams. And phishing is one of them, where the thief will send you an email and ask you to open an attachment that's loaded with malware. That the purpose of it is to essentially extract your personal information, whether it be credit card information, social security number, name, date of birth, and that can then be sold on the black market for $10, $50, $100 a piece. So it's very profitable for these folks just for phishing out there, sending out these emails, waiting for somebody to open it up, and their information is compromised. So you have to be very careful of the emails that you receive, and even more careful of the emails that you're opening that have attachments that look suspicious. Just delete them.
If you get insignias too, be careful not to fall just because you get an email and there's a symbol of the FBI or a police patch or the IRS. Don't assume that that's legitimate. We have seen just excellent computer work and forgery of official looking, what looks like very, very official electronic messages.
Fortunately, I haven't been victimized to the degree Chief Nebus has been, but I will say in recent weeks here, I received an email from a local banking institution that indicated to me that there was going to be some changes to my account, and as a result, I needed to fill out this form and send it to them. And I can tell you it looks very authentic. The information matched all the insignia and everything of this particular banking institution. And I happened to speak with this about my wife, and she said, we don't have any loans out of this particular bank. And that's exactly what it was. It was a phishing scam. Somebody waiting for me to open that up, fill out that information, and my information was compromised. So.
Did you receive any phone calls supposedly from the IRS?
I did not. I have not.
Okay.
I have not. So fortunately, not there. But
I
might be in the minority.
Every couple days, I was
They are absolutely
Yeah.
relentless.
Well,
they will
because
call and call.
if it were, obviously they get a response, it
Yep.
works, and they keep on doing it.
Absolutely. It's their hard work pays off.
And many times even these robocalls, they call them, where you get these pre-recorded messages. Most of the time, even if it tells you you wait and press a button to opt out so you won't be called, that's not how it works. You actually get more calls.
Right.
The best advice is just to hang up or ignore them when you get them.
Yeah. If it's too good to be true.
That would be a rule of thumb that you've summed up the whole show.
Absolutely.
If it sounds too good to be true,
if it sounds too good to be
might
true,
not
yeah.
be.
No doubt.
Okay. Anything else that our viewers should be aware of?
No, just use good common sense. Just don't be too trusting. Use your good instincts, and and be careful and do all you can to avoid being victim to one of these scams.
Suppress your greed.
Right.
Use your head. Suppress the greed.
Right.
And I would just add that for the community, use the free resources that are out there to make sure that you have not been victimized. A lot of times people, accounts have been opened in their names months previously and they're just finding out about them now. Because a lot of times it'll go to a collection agency, and the collection agency will be calling that individual saying, you owe us X amount of dollars. And the person will say, I never opened that account. And then they go back and check their credit report to find out that somebody had actually opened that account months previously. So that's why it's important to do regular checks on your credit report and to pay very close attention to your bank statements and use the free resources that are out there to make sure you can get quick access to that information.
One other question that I would like to ask, probably our viewers are interested in knowing whether or not any of these scammers are prosecuted or caught or identified.
Well, they occasionally are, but the reason that there are so many of these kinds of frauds that we're talking about today is because it is difficult to catch them. But people do get caught, and maybe a quick example that comes to mind, a couple of cases we've had recently is these GoFundMe or FundMe accounts that are very popular now. You hear them talked about all the time by the media and newspapers to raise money for various individuals. One of the investigations we had recently, a woman had set up an account for donations on the internet for her mother who had passed away, but her mother died 15 years ago. The woman was involved in other frauds, and recently there was a murder-suicide in Southfield, and there was a fund set up by a friend to collect donations for the children of this man and woman who were the victim of this domestic suicide murder, and the friend had absconded with $5,000 out of this account. And we just made an arrest, as a matter of fact, in the last couple of weeks on that case.
It was on the front page of the
Yes.
Farmington Press yesterday.
So there are some getting caught.
In Farmington, from my experience, identity theft is a 5-year felony, and it's very rare that you'll find we'll do an investigation where the incident is limited to one incident. Typically, the identity thieves are conducting many incidents of identity theft, and they can be charged 5 years for each one of those incidents. When we find incidents of identity theft where we can identify a suspect in our area, we're very successful in working with the prosecutor's office in securing charges against those individuals. Where it becomes a problem is when we have incidents that go out of state, and now you're crossing state lines and you have different jurisdictional issues that are involved there. It becomes very difficult to prosecute. Federal government has a threshold where that must be met in order for them to look into to identity theft case. And a lot of times, many of these cases don't meet that threshold. So unfortunately, sometimes victims are left spending hours on the phone with their credit card companies. But we have great success in Farmington, and I think in Oakland County we have a lot of support from our prosecutor's office. They've taken a very proactive stance against these types of crimes, and we have had, as a result of that, a lot of prosecutions as a result. So we certainly keep a very proactive, aggressive investigations against any identity theft case that comes across our desk, and work them to the fullest, and follow every possible lead they can before they have to inactivate the case.
Okay, I'd like to thank both of you for being here today on our show, and I'd like to also thank both of you for being liaisons to our commission Your input is greatly appreciated, and your involvement is greatly appreciated. And we look forward to working with you in the future. Until next time, we'll see everybody.